As of now, Chloe Cautin is 26. Her mother, Nicole Bakole, would have been 45. Instead, Chloe is now left knowing she will never meet her biological mom. This was determined in March of 2000. Nicole Bakole, or known as Nikki, was a Washington born citizen who, with her boyfriend Joel Cautin, decided to move to Salt Lake City, Utah in the beginning of 1988. During her time living in Utah, she became addicted to drugs and then got pregnant. With a combination of her addiction, her pregnancy, and having fights with Joel, Nikki eventually moved back to Washington. She began getting treatment for addiction, which eventually led her to become clean. Joel coerced her into returning home with his unborn daughter. Nikki left Washington yet again with notes to her family about how to contact her and where she lived. When she returned, she soon gave birth to her daughter in October of 98. Accompanied by Joel after giving birth to Chloe, Nikki began using again. Nikki stayed for another year with some contact with her family. She and her daughter in the very early 2000s both moved to Washington to be with the Bacoles. This only lasted for a month, where Nikki then left with Chloe once again after being dropped off at the airport by her mother, Nancy. It was confirmed that and noticed by the family that Nicole was using substances again in their own home. Nicole noticeably this time did not leave her family any way to contact any of them. A noticeable claim rumored from Nancy was the possibility that she was seeing an older man in Utah besides Joel. This, however, was never confirmed nor denied on the validity of this claim nor who the man is. When she returned, they temporarily lived in an apartment which they eventually were evicted from. And after several run ins with the police for shoplifting and drugs, Chloe was taken from Nicole and Joel's custody in March. It was very quickly after this, still in March, that on the 15th, Nicole and Joel had an argument. Nicole was said to have left the hotel they were staying in and was never seen again by anyone.
It was not until October 2000 that a group of duck hunters made a discovery near the Great Salt Lake and the Saltair Concert Hall in Utah. Sources differ on whether the bones were found in a half open bag or whether they were scattered there. Still, human remains of Nicole Backwell were unknowingly located by the duck hunters, specifically 26 bones and scattered teeth. Local law enforcement was called to the scene to investigate. At the scene, along the side of the bones, investigators found a t-shirt and a choker made of 3 strands of blue and purple beads braided into a rope. The remains show that the body had been exposed to the elements and possibly disturbed by animals. The teeth, in particular, were rotted and scattered. At the time, the remains could not be identified, and the case went cold for 12 years. The person known only as Saltair Sally.
Without much being known about the body in terms of the investigators, they were only able to go off the burial site as a crime scene. It took them until 2012 to even process the bones and determine the person they came from. Before that, they were able to use only stable isotope ratio mass spectrometry, SERMs, and this development in technology took until 2008 to be used, and it only told them that the body, or that of Nikki, in the final years of her life, traveled to the Pacific Northwest based on the ratio of hydrogen and oxygen atoms found in the hair compared to local water sources. Forensically, this case did not have much to go on. The burial site, when tested, only revealed Nicole's presence, but lacked anything to link any other person to the scene. With the proximity to the water, there was not much environmental disturbance to be found due to the tide. The only major example of disturbance was the bag itself, but the bag being plastic, it was difficult to try and recover any evidence of the perpetrator. Forensic analysts should have tested any other possible objects that could contain DNA, such as the bones, but they waited 12 years to analyze the remains. This is a poor reflection of the police department. They failed to use valuable and growing resources of skeletal DNA identification. It took reasonable it is reasonable that they might not have initially thought to do it during the time of the crime, as the database of DNA of that time was not extremely advanced, but in the early 2000s, this database was developing rapidly and added onto, so it did not add up. As to why they didn't do this test later on, how was there not a database for missing people? They could have used that to compare the DNA that was found. Overall, this case was acted out in a wrongful way. In the name of Nicole, the police were only able to go so far with the restricted evidence they had. The police were unable to link the found body to Nicole. As to them, at that point, it was still unknown that she was even missing. Then, 3 years later, when this missing person was finally brought to law enforcement, They didn't think to link it to the body they found along the bay side. This was only entirely a flaw on the police, as the time gap between these two events created a sense of irrelevance. It was instead on Joel and the Bakole family for refusing to report this disappearance. Even when confronted by friends and other family members, the media overall didn't have much of a presence on this case either. The reasoning is not entirely known, though may it be from the victim's relation to drugs, the Bacole's failure to enforce coverage, or simply the age of the case when developments were made. It was not extremely publicized.
We suspect the outcome of the Nicole Christina Bacole's case to have been a second-degree murder that was committed by Joel Cadwin, who at the time was her boyfriend and the last person to see her alive, during a fight between the two on March 15, 2000. By using the information released about the case, we've created a timeline that we inferred to have happened. Nicole and Joel's daughter was taken early in March of 2000. They then both had an argument over the fact that their daughter was taken, which started verbally, where Joel then claimed that Nikki left the hotel they were staying in and never returned. Instead, it would make more sense if the fight evolved into a physical fight between the two, with the fight ending when Joel took Nicole's life. Then we suspect that initially, Joel hid the body of Nicole in a different spot, then over time, after visiting the site, realized it wasn't discreet enough, so he decided to move parts to hide the body in different places, explaining why only 26 bones were found in the burial site near the Solitaire Concert Hall, which, as of now, is the only known burial spot.
We would only know whether our hypothesis is more accurate by asking more questions and angled at Joel, knowing the strange relationship Nicole had with Joel, and acknowledging the fact that he's the last one to have knowingly seen her alive. We need to ask him about the details of the fight to discover what could have caused Nikki to disappear and whether we can actually eliminate him as a suspect. The case of Nicole is entirely based on unknowns. Only speculations are able to give insights into what could have possibly happened. It's unfortunate and disheartening to know that this case might never get solved in Nicole's name, and there will be no rest for anyone still thinking of her.